I'm simulcasting.
That person does not communicate and still continues to keep a closed door and creates negativity. That's when you sit there and realize, well,
yeah, I'm just
I did what I need to do. Now I know what I need to do, which is
I'm experimenting with all the different ways that you can to film at one time, and you can cut away with different things.
Causing disruption. Move forward and embrace the opportunity to have a new beginning in a different path.
Okay, here we go.
Anyways, God bless. Everyone have a beautiful, blessed weekend. I'm so glad you called in, and I can't wait for next week again to be able to talk to you all. I will talk to you later. God bless to everyone. This is Tammy at House of Angels, talking with your angels. Bye. Bye.
All right, I'm calling Studio A.
Come join our very own eye investigatrix, Monique Zahn, your private eye X-Files.
So you're the finder of lost children?
Private eye X-Files. Every Wednesday from 7 to 9 Eastern, Studio B on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com.
I realize it's very hard for you to take in, but it's your destiny to find the golden child.
Sometimes it's like readily recognizable as clear constellations, and not only that, we have two of them right beside each other, Ursa Major and Ursa Minor, and there's clear dimensions of the symbol are inaccurate. A lot of these may even have still passageways still waiting to be discovered. Always attached to megaliths, megalithic sites, megalithic regions I've been in many places. They don't say this very why this story.
You're listening to Philosophy Think Tank. Hosted by Live Mike and James Swagger on Revolution Radio. Enjoy your extra mega fries.
You didn't give me no fries. I got an empty box.
Would you like another extra mega fries?
I said I didn't get any.
Thank you. Your account has been charged. Your balance is 0. Please come back when you can afford to make a purchase.
No.
I'm sorry you're
Come
having trouble.
on. My kids are starving.
Thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio. Here at Revolution Radio, we believe in freedom of ideas, freedom of speech, but above all, we believe in freedom of existence through self-reliance. This station is 100% listener-supported and has a fundraising promotion. I had a kick-ass free gift for a $100 donation. 35,000 seeds. 25 years in the freezer. Long-term storable, 54 different varieties. So if food prices go crazy, it's the fan, or you just want to save tons of money every year by creating your own food like I do, grab our seed pack special. Just look for the banner on the homepage at freedomslips.com. Don't be a statistic. Don't be part of the problem. Be part of the solution. We need, as humans, to start taking care of ourselves and not dependent on the megacorps to provide unhealthy, nasty food. Included in this package is also a DVD with 900 survival and off-grid living documents and the offline home canning how to do everything website all on the DVD. So when you're growing all that food, you know how to can it, store it, preserve it, etc. with all these documents. So thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. I hope that you will pick up this package and start learning. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, where information never sleeps. Freedom is one seed. What are we doing live? This goes to the eternity. Yeah.
You see, I grew up in America. I grew up in the land where phrases like, I have a dream, meant something. I grew up where I believed that freedom existed, that that's what I was fighting for. That our founding fathers made America the land of the free and the land of the brave. This is America, damn it, and I'm taking it back.
And now your host, Terry Joyce.
Welcome to the Freedom of Joy Show on Revolution Radio. Thank you very much for tuning in today. We have just a wonderful show planned for today. Here a little bit later, I'm going to be, my guest today is Bernard Alvarez, who is the founder of the Global Illumination Council. And he also has his own show here on the network, the Just Bernard Show, on Tuesdays. Between 2 and 4 p.m. Eastern Time. And so I'm super excited to have him on the show. He has just finished a new book called Returning to Source Wisdom, and the Book of One. So he's going to be coming on. He's going to be talking about his new book and several other things that are going on with the Global Illumination Council. And there's so much going on in the news, but before I get to that, I do want to let everyone out there know that we are listener supported out there. And I also want to give a shout out to a friend of mine, Jason, who purchased one of the $200 seed packets. And so that's really, really great. He's very excited to plant them. And that's something that you can do. You know, you can designate your donation for a certain amount and get these really great seed packets. And now is planting time. You know, spring is coming. And I know that a lot of us, you know, want to learn how to grow food because we're basically trapped in Monsanto hell. At least it feels that way. So one thing that I like to discuss today is how quick we are to label one another, or you know, that everything in our life is put into a specific category. Well, those are those people. Those are the stoner people over there. You know, and they're the ones who, you know, they're probably communists, or maybe they're hippies, or you know, that's the person that just sits on their couch and eats Cheetos all the time. And here's the Republican over here that, you know, wears the suit and the tie and you know, wants for less government. And then there's that person who's like this quasi in between person. Like, we don't know if they're a hippie or if they're actually a Republican, but they kind of think like a Republican, and they're really pro-gun. So let's call them a Tea Partier, and let's move on onto these different things. You know, one thing that happened to me, just on a personal level, is that I made a posting on Facebook. I said, I'm hungry as blank, and you know, you can use whatever adjective you want in there. And somebody commented and they said, well, that's because you're probably, having too much of the green. And at first, I read it and I went, what? I'm eating too many vegetables? Like, maybe the vegetables. No, wait, he's talking about I might be smoking too much weed. Therefore, the fact that I'm hungry really doesn't have a valid basis to it. Because why? Because I actually, am an activist for legalization of cannabis, and also have another show called Hollywood Hempress Hour on the Time for Hemp Network. So because I do that, that makes me, basically, I'm a pothead. You know, I am a pothead that sits on my couch and doesn't get anything done. I even told a friend of mine, I said, look, I go, how are you doing? I go, well, I am just busy. I can't seem to catch up. Oh, no, no, that's because, you're probably just sitting on your couch, and, and we know you're taking some bong hits and you're just doing some radio shows and just living life. No, really, thank you very much for unvalidating me based on the fact that I stand up for a particular plant and feel that there's no reason why it shouldn't be used as a resource. There's no reason why, basically there's really no reason to cut down a tree. and I'm just thinking, and I say that to people, no, you're just like a pothead. You're just, go back and smoke whatever you want, and, just get out of our way. And, for instance, even if you have a show on this network, let's take it to there. If you're listening to this station, what are you a conspiracy theorist? Are you a conspiracy theorist? Do you actually think that aliens exist on the planet? Are you psychic? Do you think you're psychic? I don't really, there's so many. If you tell somebody, hey, a friend of mine is a psychic, or I'm psychic, I'm an intuit, I am intuitive, or have a certain psychic ability. People think that you're just completely whacked out, and I don't know if there's like two separations of ground or what's the cause of this. I mean, think about it. How many times are we put in a box? And guess who doesn't? I'm going to point the finger again. It's usually the television. Television programming, they're going to tell you what you want, what you think, how you're going to be, what's supposed to happen. Now, here's my ultimate point of this entire rant. And this I said ranch. Did you say that? I was going to say rant, but instead I said ranch. And you know what? That is a Freudian slip, because that's where I'm going. Let's look at the Clyde Bundy ranch situation. When it first came out on the internet, I could post something on the internet. The very first things that I posted on the internet about the Clive Bundy ranch situation, nobody saw those posts. Nobody did a like. Nobody did anything on it. It's as if it didn't even really exist. And, but then there were some friends that did get it. And we started passing around. We started talking about it. We started looking at it. If you really look at the situation, what we have going on here, in my opinion, this is why it upsets me, and this is why I see it as being a connection to this. It's the same thing that's going on with medical marijuana or with cannabis. It's about the federal government not recognizing state rights, or actually laws that may have even existed before they existed. And so and I feel that it is evident that our media will do whatever it feels that it wants to make us not realize that, or take a look at it, because now apparently, mainstream media didn't even cover anything. I mean, there was already a malicious showdown going on there, and there you could hardly see any piece of news on mainstream media about what was happening on Bundy Ranch. It's as if it didn't exist. I even showed it to a friend of mine, and she said, "Oh my God, I had no idea this was going on." So now the one thing that you start to see about what's going on in Bundy Ranch is you have Jon Stewart making jokes about the fact that he's a Mormon, and that, oh, there's those Mormon people that think that they, blah, 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 blah. Well, what does the fact that he's a Mormon have to do with anything of it at all? Why does that matter? Why is it that we're always pointing out what somebody else's religion is in order to validate them or put them on a pedestal? Is it that Christians are more likely to be presidents than, say, Mormons? And I'm not like, let's say, I'm not, and again, and then as I say this, probably somebody out there, maybe even watching this YouTube's videos, goes, "Oh, she's probably Mormon, she's blonde." You know what? I mean, we all have these perceptions of, like, why we stand behind something or not. When I defended the Second Amendment, and me being a liberal who's seen as a liberal Democrat, well, most people practically think that I'm a communist already. When I said, hey, no, I think that we need to, protect the Second Amendment, and I held a meme up in the air where, with a gun over my head saying, the Second Amendment protects us from zombies, I had people quickly ready to tell me that I was a Tea Partier, and that all of a sudden me and Ted Nugent are having a party together. It's these things that we allow ourselves to be manipulated with, where we can't face and see what the real truth is. Yes, maybe Clyde Bundy is a racist, okay, because that's the big thing now. Look at this racist Mormon guy who thinks, that's a freak anyways, who hasn't paid his taxes, who doesn't care about the environment, who probably has the Confederate flag sitting behind his head. Look at this guy talk about how he wants to keep his land. And then when some Waco, Texas kind of showdown happens down there, there'll be millions of Americans who think that they're justified in being compassionate and will view whatever tactics being taken away from us. It's not the fact that, yeah, we might lose our lands. We might end up being taken off all of the lands that, the public lands that are out there, and live in some condensed area with some sort of Agenda 21 experience. That could be our reality, because this is like what maybe might be happening. But what will happen is there may be a large percentage of this population that will willfully give it over because they have been blindsided by corrupt media like Fox Network and Sean Hannity. So, there's my point. And I'm gonna move on with the show and keep it rolling here. Today we also have Dino Dad 32 to give the Freedom Report. Welcome to the show, Dino.
Thank you, Terry. Good afternoon, Madam Joyce.
Good afternoon.
Your presence as always. How you doing, Terry?
Well, I'm worked up, but apparently.
Hard, and she gets out there and makes a difference in this world. That's what we all should do. So I like to start with the Freedom Report for today. People are still talking about the Bundy range situation as you are. It's become such a big story on the internet that the mainstream media has even picked up on it. I hear that now they're labeling rancher Clive Bundy a domestic terrorist. Well, isn't that just convenient? When you label a person terrorist, then you don't have to afford him his civil rights anymore. If he's a criminal of the state, then the law does not have to give him due process. So that's where we're at in this country today. We brand someone a criminal, and then we don't have to worry about violating their civil rights. Don't you agree? This is just like when they passed the Indefinite Detention Act in 2011, when they just basically nullified our Fourth Amendment right. We should all be concerned about this. Our forefathers created laws just for this reason, to protect us from government intruding on our private property. And those laws and many others are being broken and ignored many times these days. And we are letting this happen. The government has once again overstepped their legal bounds. Our founding fathers set forth great laws, constitutional laws that should be held in high regard. So why are we ignoring these clear violations of our constitutional amendments? Remember what I always say, when you let the government take away others' rights, you give them the permission to come after your rights next. But don't just listen to me. If you just sit back and do nothing about this, then I promise you, they will be at your door next, taking away all our rights and freedoms. Are we all crazy or paranoid? Or is this really happening in this country today? So let's all do something about this. Don't let them take away our constitutional rights, any of them. Without them, we are just peasants. A wise man once said, a disarmed nation will be a nation of sheep led by wolves. I talked about the fact that the government leaders are acting like spoiled children, and we're all upset with the recent government shutdowns, but really we should be upset about the unproductivity of this Congress, the unproductiveness. Did you know this Congress has passed the least amount of bills into law in the history of Congress? This has been the most idle session of Congress ever. And with their continued partisan bickering, they are just wasting our time and money. Now, let's tie this into the two-party system that we have in this country today. Do we really have a choice? Or is it just an illusion? Let's not kid ourselves. Look what's really happening. Look at the big picture. Our government is just a big act, orchestrated out by well-played actors. It's a finely staged two-bit dog and pony show. Don't think all they are doing wasn't planned out. Don't we see they're making this whole thing up, this two-party system that they made up years ago to give us the fantasy, the illusion that we have a choice, and to keep us bickering between ourselves instead of making progress in this country. It's all an elaborate ruse, trick, dodge, scam, hoax, and deception on all of us. And you have to be crazy to think that the rich people in this country don't get together and figure out how they can become even richer each year. They do this by taking more money from us, the working folks, the middle class. We should organize ourselves as they do. You know, as you know, congressional approval is at an all-time low. I heard we now have a 14% approval rating. Did you hear this? This means, if I'm doing my math right, that 86% of us disapprove of what Congress and the Senate are doing today. And that's just the people that were polled. I feel that their disapproval ratings are really much higher. More Americans believe in Bigfoot now than believe in what the government is doing. How bad does it have to get before we decide that we have to clean house and replace them all? Just replace them all. We have to take action. It's better than 86% of us hate what they are doing. Why not get rid of them? Are we really this lazy and inactive? If the majority of us agree on how poorly they're doing, yet we still can't and won't do anything about it. I get real passionate about this. Will Rogers once said, I don't make jokes. I just watch the government and report the facts. And please tell me how criminals like California Senator Dianne Feinstein get reelected time after time for decades. For them, it's all about corporate payoffs and campaign money. She's the worst example of a senator. Are we this stupid that we keep reelecting the same people over and over again? Or is the whole system just corrupt to the core and we can't do anything about it? You know, I should do a segment each week on the Dianne Feinstein stupid quote of the week. She actually said, and I want to quote her correctly, all veterans are mentally ill in some way, and our government should prevent them from owning firearms. She really said this. Dianne Feinstein, old, ugly, evil, out of touch, corrupt, and just batshit crazy. And this is just one of the many stupid statements she's made recently. We should all know by now that we don't live in a democracy. We live in a plutocracy, which means government led by Pluto. Plutocracy. No, am I wrong about that? It means government ruled by the richest people, by the elite. Unless you're blind, even the blind people know that we are all led today by the top rich few. That's what plutocracy means. Hope I'm pronouncing that correct. Let's face it, us common folk are screwed, and the 1% will keep getting more. Nowhere else is there such an unbalanced, unequal distribution of wealth as is in this country. And this unbalance grows every year. The rich keep getting richer and we keep losing the middle class. You know, in history, this has always been the cornerstone to a collapse of a nation. The rich elite are paying off the government to make themselves richer. And the greedy and powerful corporations like Monsanto that you talked about are paying lobbyists right now that they're causing harm to the American people. If you believe differently, then you're just fooling yourself. Let's face the facts. This is the country we live in today, and we are letting this all happen to us. Well, I still have a few more minutes at the top of the hour. I just want to do one more segment. I want to talk about my home state of California. With me, Terry?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, good. I'm on a roll here. I don't want to stop. How you doing? You know, I live in the Los Angeles area. It's not, today it's really hot here. It's like 90 degrees. I'm sweating like Britney Spears on Jeopardy. Okay, let's set the record straight about California. I see a lot of people bashing California and its people, but today I have to stand up and defend my new home state. We are not all hippies or brain-dead, overpaid celebrities or wacko liberal lawyers and corrupt politicians. Most of us here in California are working-class people who are engineers, factory workers, farmers, and ranchers like Clyde Bundy. California is filled with good, conservative, hard-working folk just like me. I was surprised to find out recently that there are more fruits, rice, and vegetables grown here in Central California than any place else in the world. Many of my friends and relatives back in New York often criticize me and say things like, How do you live in California with all those nuts and flakes and that California? I often hear them say, I ain't never been there, but I know I hate it all. I live here now, and this is my new home state of California. When I moved here over 20 years ago from New York, I was amazed when I got here that you can buy anything you wanted in the gun stores. It was such a gun-friendly, gun-free state. You can shoot anywhere in the forest, and no one bothered you. But now that's all changed. It's not that way anymore. The liberals have really taken over the government. And it's not that there are more bleeding heart liberals in my state. It's just that they have more of a voice. They speak out and get on the news more often, and of course, get to the polls more often. That's important. As you know, here in California, we have a real screwed up, corrupt political system in our capital of Sacramento. And we still have our share of leftover hippies in our state. But my family and I live here in California. We are happy here for now. Never forget, there are many great things about California. We have great weather year-round, beautiful mountains and oceans. You can swim in the morning and ski that same afternoon. I've done that. It's great. So please don't judge the whole state by a few stupid liberal cities. There's more to Cali than Hollywood and San Francisco. As I said, most of us here in our state are hard-working, friendly, decent, patriotic Americans, not the spoiled celebrities like the Kardashians that you see on TV every night. Come see my beautiful state of California for yourself before you judge us all. Well, that's it for me today. I hope I made some good points and made you think. Remember what I say. When we speak the truth, then we are the Information Minutemen. And that's the Dino Dad 32 Freedom Report for today, the 25th of April, 2014. Please find Dino at his new website at dinodad32.com or on YouTube at dinodad32.
Thank you, Dino. Thank you.
What's that, Terry?
Thank you for the report. We really appreciate it. I love the fact that you said that. What was that reference? They were sweating like Britney Spears and on Jeopardy.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it's hot here today.
Right.
I'm sweating like Britney Spears on Jeopardy.
Okay, that's quite the image. I would really love it if like Britney Spears actually got on Jeopardy and she just brilliant. I think that would be so funny. That there's always this stereotype of that she but I don't know. Anyway, I won't go there.
Well, we always say, me and my family always say that they're stupid all the way to the bank.
Well, I don't know.
They gotta have something going on, and they're not that rich.
Well, I want to actually take a moment. I know we don't have too much time before we go to the break, but I would like to introduce for a moment, before we do, Bernard Alvarez. Hello, welcome to the show.
Well, hey, Terry, thanks for having me on today. How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm enjoying the report and listening to you guys banter back and forth, I'll tell you.
Well, thank you. It's so you showed me an article. You have your thoughts about the Clive Bundy ranch situation, and there was an article that was posted in the Global Illumination Council. And so I was just kind of briefly looking over that for a moment. There's a lot of disinformation out there on the internet. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, as I was listening to both you and Dino speak about the situation, I couldn't help but align with everything that you're saying. It was the same thing for me when the information started coming out about the ranch standoff and whatnot. I mean, I spoke to, I live in Roanoke, which is a very blue city. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love the idea that it's liberal, in the sense that it's socially liberal, but the only problem is that they also are politically liberal, and immediately the gun people are like, oh, look at them, all crazy rednecks with their guns, and I'm like, you're living in Virginia, what are you talking about, crazy rednecks with guns? I'm calling the kettle black here in Virginia. But and it really got to me that people just didn't understand what the issue was. I heard people say, oh, well, people don't realize how bad the cows are on the grass. It's destroying the topsoil or whatever. And I'm like, I'm sure they move. They don't go to the same patch every day. But and it's been going on for years and years that this kind of stuff, that we've been grazing cattle. That's how we grow beef. Okay, well then I guess you don't want to eat beef. You don't eat beef, do you? So I mean that's how frustrating it was. I was like pulling my hair out when I heard some of these comments. And as far as how the news is handling, now don't get me wrong. I don't really enjoy the way it has become a very divisive issue, and I'm not about divisiveness. I'm not about left or right, conservative or liberal. I'm about truth, and I'm about equality, and I'm about justice. My biggest issue with what happened at the Bundy Ranch is that if indeed it is federal land, that land belongs to the people. And how dare they tell a U.S. citizen they cannot be on that land or to use it as they have been using it for a century. That was my issue. I didn't care about the gun thing. I didn't care about that, whatever, The reality of it is that this was a huge debacle. I don't know what the government, the federal government, was trying to do. It was obviously some type of a distraction, for lack of a better term. I always say when the news is saying one thing and everybody's looking at one thing, we got to ask ourselves, well, what are we not looking at? What are they turning us away from? And great, exactly what happened today with, I guess today or yesterday with the New York Times. It was New York Times, or I forgot who it was that posted the whole thing about him being racist or whatever. The first thing I thought of when I heard of that, granted, going back to the fact that I live in the state of Virginia, even though I'm in a liberal city, Virginia is basically, kind of backwoodsy all in all, the vibe. And, just the idea of them or anybody around here getting upset with him using the old term, I'm not even going to say the word because I don't feel comfortable saying it, but using an old term for an African American.
Yes. Yeah.
It wasn't even the N word; it was the light N word.
Yes. Yeah. Which is what used to be used, I think, probably in his generation.
I was like, how many of your grandmothers around here still say that and actually use the other bad N word, and you don't have a problem with your grandma? I'm like, don't get me wrong. I believe that as our generations
We'll be right back and make a donation while we're gone.
Listen to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. We'll be right back after this message. Revolution Radio.
You don't see it, do you? How close we are to absolute chaos? The sick ones are sitting on their fat asses, eating and drink themselves into a stupor, polluting the world without a second thought while it goes down the toilet. Nobody wants to do the nasty work. The shit that we all just think about. Most good citizens are just along for the ride and then bitch and moan and complain about everything when it doesn't work out. Get it done.
Revolution Radio, where we do the nasty work. www.freedomslips.com. Is your data safe? Do you have the necessary information to assist you in confidently living through just about any survival situation? Is survival and gardening, off-grid living, medical knowledge, or even natural or man-made EMPs on your list of personal concerns? Do you have your documents and your personal information in a safe place in your hands where you know where it is? Well, check out our preloaded EMP-proof thumb drive. Over 3 gigs of survival documents and how-tos, plus the USDA offline food preservation website, and much, much more, including a surprise bonus we just can't tell you about here. With plenty of room left over to store your most important documents. Imagine if a megavirus or computer failure took out your bank, or all the banks for that matter. Are your banking records safe in your hands? So when they get things fixed and repaired, you can say, hey, look, this is what I had. You have it. I want it back. Is your personal data safe? Family records, addresses, phone numbers? Well, squeeze on over to freedomslips.com. Yes, that's www.freedomslips.com. Click the banner on the homepage for the EMP-proof bullet drive to get the full scoop of everything that we offer. So, folks, keep your data safe for your peace of mind. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here. Revolution Radio. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Welcome back to the Freedom of Joy show. Thank you so much for being with us today, and just want to give a shout out to those who are everybody who's in the chat line. I'm also in there too as well. My name is Terry in it, Tere. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them. To ask anything that you want to Bernard Alvarez or any of us here on the show, or if you want to participate in any of the topics or discussions, your thoughts are more than welcome, and we would love to share them with the listeners. Also, we'll be taking calls at the second hour, so I'll be more than happy to hear from you. And the number is 347 688-902. And I just want to make sure to again, I'm not sure if I fully said please do make a donation to us, because we are listener supported, but I do want to make sure that I get that out there, because we've got a lot of really wonderful hosts and information going on in this network, and I love Revolution Radio, and I want to see it keep going. So and again, thank you so much for your support. Today I have Bernard Alvarez from the Global Illumination Council. He also has a show here on the network called the Just Bernard Show. And I also have Dino Dad 32 with us today. And so welcome back to the show, you guys.
Thank you.
Hey, Terry, thank you.
Thank you. And you know what, I have a few more things I'd like to explore on what you were talking about, Bernard, before the break, where you discussed the N-word and how there's always like there's always these taboo the F word, you know. There's always like we just have the consonant of something, the T word, you know,
Right.
the Z word. Yeah, that's an important one.
Well, I mean, to pick up where I left off, where my thought left off, basically, when I saw the article today, and I have to say, let me just say, it wasn't only the New York Times that posted it. It was another so-called activist blog, and they were promoting that he was a racist or whatnot, and I was really let down by that, because it is an activist organization and or blog or Facebook page, all the above, that I usually look to for sources, and it kind of let me down that they just jumped on the bandwagon with the mainstream media. And again, immediately my first thought was, I'm like, here's an old man that lives on a ranch. Okay, he's what, in his 60s, 70s, I don't know, and he didn't even use the bad N-word. He used the proper for the time, for his generation.
Yes.
And and I see it all the time, and I hear it all the time. Living here in Virginia, all of my friends are like, oh, please just ignore my grandfather. He's still a racist. Or, my grandma's still a racist. Or, hell, my parents were racist. But, that was their generation. They were born in the 20s and 30s, and they didn't even realize they were racist. They were like, that's just the way it was. Now, times are changing. Absolutely, I believe times are changing. But you can't start pointing fingers at an old man who says the N-E word and get all outraged over that. It's like, really? That's like getting mad at an old lady for saying cardigan instead of sweater,
Yeah.
old people are not going to be politically correct. Get used to it,
Well, my dad does it, like my dad's done, said that word, and just in his explanations, and and that's my Latin dad. I mean, it's my Mexican dad. You know what I mean? It's like, and I feel like I preference that. He wasn't really white saying that. He has some ethnicity. It's like embarrassing. And I go, Dad, we don't say that anymore. What are you talking about?
If it was somebody 40 years old or 30 years old, I'd probably get pissed off. I'm like, wow, you're really a racist. We've come a long way since then. Why are you using that word?
Right. But
There's
when it's
people my age that still use the FAG word, and I'm like, really? How old are you?
Yeah.
It's like, come on, we've come a long way since that. But, if a 90-year-old person says, FAG, I'm like, whatever. He's 90 years old. That's what they used to say back then. I don't know.
Well, and my feeling is that, and I've looked at the video, like a friend of mine showed me this video because, again, I've been pretty, supportive of their fight for their cause. And a friend of mine, showed me this video yesterday, and I'm looking at it, and I'm looking. It was a blog for Fox News. Basically, it was written on, I guess, one of their bloggers or whatever, and mentioning Sean Hannity and all this kind of stuff, and basically my friend goes, well, Fox News supports it, and I go, well, how dare them support it? Why is it all of a sudden their cause? Is kind of how I felt about it. And I watched the video, and first of all, it's taken out of context. You don't hear the question beforehand, and you don't hear anything before the setup of that or afterwards. I mean, you could take anything that anybody says and clip it and make it look any way you want to, but if you don't know what came before it or afterwards, it's really difficult, I think, to just to assume that what you're looking at is exactly how it's framed. And if you take a blog, you can write whatever you want around it, and put it any way you want to, make it look any way you want. And that's my question about what he's saying. I feel that he's saying our government subsidies that are supposedly taken care of, and again, he's talking about a minority group of people, but oftentimes the minorities have been pushed into being the poor part of our society. They've never, look at it. Why are we? First of all, when you go to court, there are more people of color who are sitting there with a traffic ticket than there are Caucasian people. I'm sorry, but I've noticed that. So if you're, yes, maybe there are more people of different races that are on food stamps, perhaps, or they might be considered to be the poor. They've always been like the poor people here in America, and some, by and large. I'm not saying always, but there's more. The stereotype exists because there's some truth to what that is. So, he's comparing, maybe he's comparing the slave days to today and saying, you know what, they were probably better, a person's probably better off being a slave, making slave wages, than they are with what the government can do for them. Is, I think, what the point that he was making, which basically, it's not just them, it's not just people of color or of other nationalities that are working as slaves in America. Did I lose everybody?
No, I'm here. We're listening.
I'm here. I'm about to go on a roll. I was waiting for you to finish.
Oh, okay. I was like, oh my God, I offended it. There's like silence.
We were just wondering where we go from here. If I can interject, you're both dancing around the word, and it wasn't that bad of a word. It was Negro, I think he said. Is that correct?
Yep.
And still today we have the United Negro College Fund. And is that bad for me to say that? And that word appears in nursery rhymes. And, I remember the President Lyndon Johnson used to use that word all the time. You know that nursery rhyme, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, catch a tiger by the toe? Well, the original word, it wasn't tiger, it was the N-word. Because tigers don't have toes. I heard an old lady singing that to her grandchild one day, and we were all like offended by it. That was the original the nursery rhyme.
Oh my God.
Eeny, meeny, miny, mo, catch him by the toe. If he hollers, let him go. Does a tiger holler? When we heard that, we were like appalled. But that's what like you're saying, older people use that word, and that was in the lexicon of the time. There was nothing wrong with it. I mean, today.
Exactly. That's his generation, and to be, I think that the gist of what we're trying to get out of this discussion is that it's just only a distraction. I mean, here we are on alternative radio, and we're still talking about the stupid racist comment, whether we agree with it, whether we disagree with it. What's the real issue happening at the Bundy Ranch? It's not the fact that he used a 50-year-old, terminology for an African American. It has nothing to do with that. What is the real issue? Why are we letting ourselves be distracted by this issue as people, as Americans, as libertarians, as whatever it is, freedom fighters, people for equality, justice, and awareness of what's going on with our governments around the world, but yet it has eaten up a discussion. It's eating up the Facebook posts. It's eating up alternative news. It's eating up mainstream news, and we're forgetting the real issue of what's going on at the Bundy Ranch.
And what, in your opinion, Bernard, what is that? What do you feel is really going on at the Bundy Ranch?
Well, I mentioned it before. My feeling is, and I feel it's very important. For me, it's very symbolic of people saying this is our country, this is our land. Fine, you want to call it federal land? It's still our land. It's not your land. It's my land. I pay the taxes that take care of that land. And the federal government, public land means public land. For me, that is the biggest thing. And as a U.S. citizen, we have the right to use that land any way we see fit. It really, I mean, unless you're out there like destroying, the redwood forest or something like that. I understand that. I can get that. But even here in Virginia, in the Jefferson Forest, they allow for logging. And I'm like, yeah, you let the public do logging in the Jefferson National Forest, but this guy can't feed his cows. So to me, that's the issue. It's like, okay, where do we draw the line? When did we give the federal government all this authority on what we can and cannot do? They are merely supposed to be, how should we say, what's that word I'm looking for? I'll get it in a second. But they're not supposed to be the authority. They are supposed to be working for us and taking care of that land for us. It doesn't mean that they own it and that we can get fined for it.
I'm with you. I agree with you. I'm with you on the same. I view it the same way. I feel that the federal government is, it's a sign that they're out of control, and also when they come after you, very intimate. The way they take your cattle, or they've got guns. They don't come at you pleasant. They don't come like, hey, we're gonna have to like do this. They come after you like they're gonna shoot you. And and it's that tactic also that bothers me. To me, it feels like more police state, more things being taken away, more regulation.
It's a police state vibration that comes out of this. That's what I really dislike about it, and that's for me what is the real issue here. It's the police state mentality and the police state tactics.
Yes. Yeah, and it's disturbing to me to see how the internet spins things, how things are manipulated, how we're manipulated into focusing on something else, and to see the mainstream media be quiet for so long, and then the minute that they come out, it's like they come out with this. It's like it almost feels calculated, or that it's prepared to say, well, this is going on right now. How are we going to attack this and socially engineer people's opinions so we can go ahead and do this agenda? Not only will we be able to get it done, but we'll willfully have it be done, and it will be accepted socially and culturally in our country, and it will set a new precedence. So,
exactly.
Yeah,
look at what happened in Boston. I mean, I still cringe at the fact that people just let them take over the city of Boston and allow them into their homes to be searched, and all over a couple of kids that were supposedly lit a bomb. What, we haven't had worse than that here in the United States, and we've closed down cities and let federal officers and police officers through our home?
Yes.
That was disgusting. To me, that was like, that was the icing on the cake. If people don't realize we live in a police state after that episode, then I don't know what we're going to do here to wake people up.
Bernard, get used to it. That's what's going to happen in America more and more often. The SWAT teams are going out to houses 1,400% more often. the statistics on it are ridiculous.
Exactly. I mean,
More
even
so-
here, in Roanoke. Now, don't get me wrong. In Roanoke City, we're really lucky. I feel we're very lucky. We have a very community-oriented police team or whatever. I mean, they're friendly. You know, everybody knows them. They talk to everybody. They wave to everybody. You know, we all know. Hell, when we were in Occupy, they would protect the occupiers from the people coming through. It was like, hey, don't mess with the occupiers. I mean, they were really a part of the community here. And now, this is a small city. We've only got 90,000 people in this city. But if you look at the bigger cities, like, you know, just like Boston or New York City, Miami, I mean, yeah, I agree. It really is a police state. I left Fort Lauderdale for that. One of the reasons I left Fort Lauderdale was for that very reason. When I was living in Fort Lauderdale back in 2009, 2010, we literally had police towers in all of the major parking lots. Like in the shopping centers, the strip centers, they had what I would call a prison tower, an armed prison tower with police people, armed police looking over the parking lot. It's like, this is no way to live. It's like living in a prison.
There's somebody
That's
who
what they're shooting for, yeah. No pun intended.
somebody in the chat line wrote, every 10 years I think people change what the politically correct title is. I can't keep up. I agree with that. It is difficult to keep up, like what is and what isn't. But you know, I love the fact that you're here today, Bernard. And again, I don't want to spend the whole day talking about you know, what's going on with Bundy with the Bundy Ranch situation. And again, there's a lot of things that are going on in the world. I posted something the other day and I said these are the strangest days I've ever known, which apparently is a quote by the Doors or Jim Morrison, or according to and according to the director. God, what's the director of the movie The Doors? God, how could I forget his name?
Oliver Stone.
Yes, according to Oliver Stone's version, that's something that Jim Morrison said. But and definitely the GIC is the Global Illumination Council is a place where people can go and maybe try to have some community and you know, sort out or learn about what might be happening in our world. So
That's where I met you.
yes, yeah, because I was looking for information. I think that a lot of us at some point start to wake up and say, wait a second, I've got some questions, and some of the questions that I have, I don't really particularly feel that if I approached a friend of mine or maybe even a family member and said, hey, I kind of suspect that maybe something like this is going on, they would go, oh, you're crazy. You know?
Right, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, you know, and so what I love about the fact that with being a part of the Global Illumination Council is that there's just information out for everybody, but it doesn't. There's no real like religious affiliation or basically, you know, you have to be this way or that way. It's got. I feel that there's within reason of treating one another with respect and everything, like being you know, a loving person in terms of the community. I just feel that there's this openness for a lot of different topics to explore.
Yeah, and quite honestly, that was one of the reasons why the Global Illumination Council was created. It was to create a safe haven on the internet. You know, I started off on YouTube. You know, that's how I got my popularity, if that's what you want to call it, my celebrity, my alternative mainstream celebrity status or whatever. And if anybody remembers YouTube 5, 6, 7 years ago, it was ruthless. I mean, people were, and they don't fight as much anymore, but now they fight on Facebook. But, but it was like, you know, there were people trying to ask questions, people trying to get answers, and I mean, it was just like troll heaven. And I felt that it was very important, and not only for the reason that we wanted a safe environment, but for the reason that people needed a forum, needed a platform to be able to ask these questions, whether they be political or spiritual, or, you know, dealing with extraterrestrials or genetically modified organisms or chemtrails or, you know, channeling, whatever it is that people are waking up to. You know, I always say that we're all waking up on different aspects of humanity, and And a lot of that has to come to the surface and needs to be explored. And many people are just afraid to talk about it openly. I have so many people, even Facebook friends, are like that are members of the GIC, and they will never let anybody on Facebook know they're a member of GIC because they don't want to be thought of as weird.
Yes.
They'll never tell anybody that they are a libertarian socialist. It's like, libertarian's a bad word to the left, socialism's a bad word to the right. Well, guess what? I'm both, so I'm bad to both. You know.
Uh-huh.
And it is a place to be safe, to explore these issues and see and not be labeled. And I think that's the most important thing. I come from a philosophy that if you are going to call people Democrat, Republican, left or right, you've let them win. They won. The moment that you label someone, the moment that you allow them to divide us from one another, you're swimming upstream. We're never going to create any change when we keep playing by their rules, and their rules are to divide us. The Jon Stewarts against the Bill Maher's against the Sean Hannity's against the Glenn Becks, and to me, this is Agenda 21 to drive us crazy and to divide us from each other. We must get beyond that if we're ever going to unite and really get the situation under control. And if we're going to get the situation under control, we got to get ourselves under control first, and that's very much part of my philosophy.
I agree with you, and I'm glad that you mentioned the pundits because I have to mention the pundits, being that I feel that I come from that ilk, you know, and sometimes I want to look at my peers and I go, why are you basing your creativity on a right left kind of mentality all the time? And again, I was doing that because that's what I thought that I needed to master or be able to have opinions on, because I started to be invited to be on top of platforms like that. And there's definitely the sexy liberal kind of, hey, my hair's a little bit longer than normal and I get to be really suave and wear cool clothes and be on TV and represent this liberal ideal. And I can, sit back and make jokes about if I swear, I wonder if they just have copy or writers and they go, okay, now this is what's going on with Bundy Ranch, and these are the jokes that we wrote for you, and so this is what you're going to say. So I don't know if some of the entertainers are actually even aware of the fact that they're actually perpetuating a matrix, or if they have actually just sold out and said, you know what, I'm going to perpetuate the matrix. And I think, Bernard, there's a combination of both.
Oh, absolutely. And I will say it goes even further than the director or the comedian or the pundit. I personally feel it goes even beyond the White House. There are spin doctors creating spin. I mean, we have spin doctors that manipulate the president. We have spin doctors that manipulate the Congress. We have spin doctors that manipulate what's going out on the news. Every story is created in one way or another. There is no truth when it comes to corporate media or corporate politics, and yet let's call it what it is. Both Democrats and basically everything nowadays, whether it be Washington, D.C., Rome, London, it's corporate politics. It has nothing to do with the people, and that is all spun from the highest echelons, easily.
So what I like about the GIC is that there is a forum too where I feel that I can go and get real information, or information that I mean, I know that for example, when you work in media or you start to blog things or you start to book guests on a show, maybe some people don't care about what that guest is saying because they're just interested in pointing out sensationalism, and they want to push a button in society to get people revved up, to get talking about you. But there's really no overall point to have any to be discreet about whether or not the information that's out there is truthful. Whereas I feel that you want to know the truth, or you want to at least project the truth as much as you know it. And that's how I feel. Like if I have a guest on a show, it's because I feel that their knowledge is at least worthy of exploring and going, you know what, this might be a possibility.
Well, I mean, a great example is I live off less than $1,000 a month, and I've been doing this for 8 years. I have turned down guests. I've turned down corporate sponsorships. I believe in integrity, and I believe that anyone, whether it be a guest, a writer, an associate, an admin, anyone who works with us, has to have that integrity, and it's not going to sell out, or it's not a sellout. I don't want a sensationalist approach to the news or a sensationalist approach to a certain topic. But I do believe there's the truth that needs to be put out there, and you know, we're doing it.
We are doing it. And we'll be right back with more Bernard Alvarez and Dino Dad 32.